Hello folks, welcome to Gelvin Valley on Farming Simulator 15, a map prepared by Wild Wild Wes. We are in the middle of rolling our fields, trying to get this done so we can determine what crop we're going to put in for the next cycle, and trying to get the work done. This is on one of our steeper slopes, so hopefully the roller and the tractor stay on the hill. Actually, the entire time I've been rolling out here, I've been talking about uh, some of the pet peeves that I have, and I am, probably everybody's happy to hear this, I am finally at the bottom of my list. I had just one more item on there. I look at it, I've been checking them off as I go. Maybe some of you say it's a pet peeve to have people with lists of pet peeves. Probably going to sound like a prickly bear after all this in terms of people having to deal with me. I promise I'm not that hard to get along with. Leastways, I hope not. But the last one that I put on here was parents who have perfect kids. You know, my little junior would never do that. Oh yeah? Well, not only did they do it, they did it 12 times. Oh hey, is my roller missing? Oh, fiddle. Looks like we got a little dab. Sneak around. I'm probably going to get people car sick watching that if they see me go around the loop-de-loop that way. I tried to narrow up the GPS boundary a little bit because I know it's a little tougher to do when you're on a hill. I think it's getting most of it. Yeah, I probably didn't narrow it up enough. Oh well. Once again, I forgot to turn on my timer. I tell you what. Like my grandpa would say back in the day, if I had a brain, I'd play with it. A term of endearment, of course. Not a pet peeve. But parents with perfect kids. Maybe to fully appreciate that one, you have to be a parent yourself, but maybe not. I think we all know the type. The parent whose kids have never, nor ever could do anything wrong. You know, the ones that were speaking fluent French, you know, when they were a mere 3 years old. Um, and you know what? I'm a parent, and I'm proud of my kids, too. I appreciate their accomplishments. I think I've even mentioned some of it on here. But I'd like to hope, too, I can also appreciate the accomplishments of someone else's kids, too. And you know what? The kids really have nothing to do with it. It's the parents, you know, where maybe they're blind to their kids' faults. And maybe what it is sometimes is we tend to see our progeny as an extension of ourselves. And of course, we all see ourselves as perfect. So therefore, our kids must be perfect or else we can't be perfect. I don't know how it goes, but I think we've all run into that person, and it manifests itself in so many different ways. You know, it can show up in band. You know, when my kid plays his horn just the best of any other kid, all the way out to athletics and parents yelling at coaches when they don't play their princess or their kid, you know, because of course if their kid was in there, things would just be right with the world and they would win games and etc., etc. I kind of think growing up, my mom and dad had a different philosophy. I'm not going to say they didn't believe us kids, but when, if, or yeah, when is probably the right, when there was a problem, you know, at school or something, they would typically take as fact whatever the teacher or the principal said, and they distrusted the things that we would say. So we learned early on a respect for authority, and that we couldn't really pull the wool over someone else's eyes, or especially mom and dad's. I can't remember if I shared this story in here. I just thought of it just now. I was just amazed. I was 47 years old before I knew that my parent knew of something that happened at school, and they never told me about it at the time, but they knew. It's amazing what a parent can find out just by doing a little investigating when you care about your kids, which my parents did. But I got in a little tussle at school. And this fits in real well with pet peeves. There was a know-it-all kid. We were playing just softball, playground softball. There was a big old group of us, and there was one kid who just insisted on pitching. And honestly, he wasn't very good at it, but he was one of those kids. He made enough noise that people finally just let him have his way. So he was the pitcher, and he was just being a royal jerk, insulting batters that would come up, to hit. He would call things strikes, that were not strikes, declare people out, and he was really just being a royal jerk. And Atomic 67, you may appreciate this. You probably would never imagine that I would do something like this. I finally had enough of this kid, and he was a grade behind me. Or was he 2 grades behind me? I think he was my brother's age. So I may have been, oh goodness, what was this? I probably was maybe 5th or 6th grade, and he would have been a grade or 2 behind me. I can't remember if he was exactly my brother's age grade or if he was in between us. It doesn't really matter. I finally got tired of it, and I called him out. And of course, he gave me a tirade, from the pitcher's mound. I think I was on first base or whatever. And his sister, and these kids, by the way, they were neighbors of ours. His sister started laying into me also. She was in my grade, I think. Defending her little brother. I guess good for her. Blood's thicker than water, right? So let's just say it wasn't figured out amicably, and so what I ended up doing was, I basically, in so many words, lost my temper, and I went up to the kid, and I didn't punch him. What I did is I basically dragged him over to the edge of the field, and where we had this backstop sitting was right on the edge of the school property, out on the playground, and behind the backstop were a bunch of briar patches in between. They were in between the briar, or in between the backstop, the edge of the property, and then it was just farm fields kind of on the other side of it. So it was a bunch of briars, and I threw him into the briar patch. I was just mad at him, and looking back, I'm admitting it here, but looking back, that wasn't a good thing to do. He obviously was very upset, and I probably hurt like crazy going in there and getting some thorns in various parts of his anatomy. These were berry briars, so the thorns on there, they weren't the super long thorny kind. These weren't thorns that were, an inch long or whatever. They were, I don't know, 1/8 of an inch. So they would draw blood. I had many times drawn blood in there. I was just sick and tired of him, and that was the only thing I could think of in my youthful brain, ill-advised brain, was to put him in a briar patch. Well, I can't even remember what it did to our game. Recess may have been over by then. I remember getting just another tirade from his sister. I think the two of them left. The game went in. We probably all did too. I can't remember if our recess was over. And it was, and then I started thinking, it's like, oh boy, what had I just done? And I bet I'm going to probably get in trouble. And that's exactly what, this kid's sister said. And I think he said also, it's like, I'm going to tell, the classic kid stuff. And, and they did. But the remarkable thing is, I never got in trouble for any of it. No teacher or the principal never talked to me. My parents never talked to me. Nothing. And so, time goes by. Oh, hold on a sec here. Let me check my fields. I gotta see. I gotta see if who has cropping. Oh, okay. So I gotta do number 2 and number 1, and yeah, these two, and then I'll sneak over here for 26 and 25 to take the roller back. All right. So I gotta fold this up. Oops. Head on down the farm road here. So like I say, this kid, oh yeah, they told on me. They did the ad and then some with the teacher and principal, what have you, but I was just amazed that I got off scot-free. I don't remember any of the kids particularly talking about it or or anything like that. They maybe were as surprised as I was to have kind of a violent reaction. Um, so I thought my parents didn't know about it. And, at some point at home, I don't remember how old I was, but at some point, this became known, and I thought it was because I told mom and dad. I think even in high school, I used the incident, I wrote an essay about it. Um, Eventually, uh, things patched up. Like I say, these were neighbor people, they were good people, and I got along well with his sister who was in my grade, and at some point then their family moved someplace else, I don't remember where. So things patched up over time, but I never knew that the school had called my parents and told them about this incident until very recently. Like I say, I was 47 years old. And like I say, I knew eventually I did tell my mom and dad. I didn't tell them right away. But I was just floored that they knew all about it basically shortly after it happened. And the, the funny thing to me is, and I don't know if teachers can still do this kind of thing, they basically said that they didn't think it was a problem. They think the kid that was put in the briar patch has learned an important lesson. I'm laughing about it now because sometimes I needed that kind of a lesson to have my ears pinned back a little bit, and maybe it was this kid's turn, and that apparently the principal laughed about it. Now, it's a good thing they never told me any of this, of course, until years later. I don't know what I would have done with that information. But I don't recall them asking a question, nothing. But they knew all about it. And so, if there are any fifth or fourth graders listening to this, just be aware your mommy and daddy, they know everything anyway, so you can't hide anything from them. It really makes me wonder just what else I did when I was a kid that maybe I have thought this whole time that I kept hidden from mom and dad, and I probably would be astounded to learn just how much they knew of what I was doing, uh, regardless of what I tried to do to cover it up. So, all that to say is I am very certain that my parents would never tell people they had perfect kids, but I know they were happy when we did things good. I know that for sure, but I don't think they presented us as perfect kids. Or maybe if they did, I was oblivious to it. I always wondered when I was next gonna get in trouble over some such. That probably could be an episode all on its own, because man alive, I've done some stupid things in my life. and a lot of which I don't even want to relate here. Some of it's I'm pretty ashamed of and wish I hadn't done. Um, one that comes to, I mean, sometimes it's just foolish stuff you do as a kid. Um, there was a hornet's nest one time out on the playground, and I remember it was just stupid. I said I was a brave bee catcher. I went and stuck my foot right in the middle of their nest, and well, you can about imagine the reaction. Of course, they came after me. I don't know how many stings I took, but found myself in the school office with some nurse looking me over and trying to patch me up. I was bawling my head off. I'd been stung so many times. So all the way from stuff like that to things that are more serious. I remember a late fall. There was a particularly dry fall, and some kid had brought matches to school. And so we were out there in the dry grass on the playground playing with matches. And it was a windy day. And for whatever reason, thankfully, we couldn't get any grass lit. But we were out there trying to burn grass. I mean, how stupid is that? Maybe that was kind of foreshadowing of the days when I would work for a grass seed farm and we would be burning grass fields or something. I don't know. But that was a pretty dumb thing to do. I got in trouble with that with the principal, and I still remember. This. I know teachers can't do this anymore, but I still remember. It's left an indelible imprint on my mind. Him calling me into his office and having a very sober conversation, which was important. But then he pointed at this paddle that was up on the wall. Have any of you ever been at a school where they had corporal punishment or whatever they call that? Now, what's interesting is he didn't say that he would do it, but he said if I catch you ever doing something like that again, he says I'll call your parents down and they will use it on you. It sounded to me like he knew my parents, because I fully believed him, because that's exactly what happened a lot of times at home. If I misbehaved or got into trouble, to try to teach me, my parents would give me the good old board of education to the hind end. So, uh, yeah, I believed him when he pointed at that paddle. In terms of fights and stuff, other than, well, I'm trying to think. Yeah, other than that kid in the briar patch, I think there was one other instance where I went after somebody, not really a fight, but it was someone who was being mean to one of my little brothers. So we had a little discussion at one point, and I let him know that wasn't appreciated. But it wasn't a fight, really. I wanted him to leave my little brother alone. That's what I wanted. But other than that, I didn't really get into a lot of fights. Um, those were probably it. I'm trying to just go through my memory bank. I don't think there was any others. Is this my third round? I should have set up GPS. Well, I'll rectify that here when I get up to the top. And a lot of that is just kid stuff, I guess all of us, I mean, who can claim they're perfect, And I don't mean to say that as an excuse. I tried as an adult, especially when, as a matter of faith, personal faith in my beliefs, Christianity, I tried to make amends for, people I had harmed in my life in the past, or even just to go back and apologize. Matter of fact, I'm dealing with that right now with one of my kids. This episode is so far out there, I hope that whenever this airs, he's already taken care of it. There was some mix-up in one of his classes here the other day, and I think my son said some things that weren't appreciated by another kid. that were offensive to him, near as I can tell, and I've just encouraged him to apologize. And I think he's willing to do it. And I don't know how it's going to go, but, it's just, I don't know, life is so short to try to keep a short account, if you will, if you can, on those kinds of things. There's only good, I hope, that can come from that. If someone with genuine humility apologizes for something they did and tries to make up for it and doesn't make excuses but owns it, I would I think in the world anymore that we're living in, that is so rare that it shocks people when you do that. And what I've told my son, I think this is true, and I think I've experienced this before in my own life. If you do that, you may gain a friend that you never knew you could have had, just by being willing to humble yourself and apologize for something you shouldn't have done in the first place. And odds are, too, if this other kid is decent, and I don't know who this kid is, but maybe he'll also look at his own behavior in the instance, because he's not perfect either, and maybe he'll have an apology to make. I have no idea. Just one of those things. It's life, right? So the idea of some parents saying, my kids are perfect, it's pretty much laughable. And that, folks, I think, is the end of my pet peeve list. So probably everybody sighing a sigh of relief that there's no more. Maybe if I sat and thought long enough on it, maybe I would come up with some more. I don't know. But I know I mentioned this several episodes ago. I'd be really interested to hear what your pet peeves are. Please put them in the comments if you want to share. Or not, whatever you want to do. I can't force you to do nothing. That was just kind of a fun exercise to think through all those things. I hope I'm not someone who rants most of the time. I don't know if that solves anything, but this was kind of fun to think about through some of those things. And I would bet money anybody listening to this has their own list of pet peeves, so probably I'm guessing some of those resonated with some of you. Now I'm looking at the time, and once again I forgot to turn on my timer because I'm such a forgetful old man. So I'm not even sure where we're at. I wonder if yeah. I think I turned over, I'm just looking at my rental period up there. 53 minutes. I'm pretty sure I saw about 15 minutes when I started, so maybe, what does that make me? Does that go 60? Yeah, that's not at 100, so that's 7 minutes in, so maybe I'm at 22 minutes now, give or take. I'm doing my math right. As I record this, it's late Sunday evening. If I say late, it's not quite midnight yet. Probably after this one, I'm gonna call it good and head to bed. Got a long week coming. Trying to get ready for a family vacation. Want to take one again. I know I probably mentioned my fishing trip that I took this past summer. Want to spend some more time with the family, so we've been working on setting that up. Never had to do that part as a kid, and it's nothing like having to do it yourself to make you appreciate the things your mom and dad did for you back in the day for getting to do some of those things. So we're gonna go see my daughter who lives a couple time zones away, and so it's gonna be a several day driving trip. Well, 3 days basically. We'll get there, leave early morning first day, get there late evening on the third day, hotel it for a couple days. Actually, that isn't totally accurate. Going there, it's going to be more than that because we're taking some detours. There's some national parks we want to see, even this time of year, and as I record this, it's November. So who knows when this thing is going to air? It could be in the middle of June next year for all I know. But I don't know, I always get a little nervous. We hope to celebrate the U.S. Thanksgiving holiday with my daughter there and get to see her and her husband and like I say, view some of the country as we go back. The parks we want to go to are, it's called Zion's National Park is one of them. I've never been there. I think it's in southern Utah. It's where that one is. But the other two places we want to visit, I have been to. It's just been a long time ago. One is the Grand Canyon, kind of in northern Arizona, kind of in that area. I think that's where the main visitor center is. So we'll spend some time there. You see it in pictures, you see it in films, but it just doesn't do it justice to seeing it with your own eyes. You just go and you see something like that, and I don't know, it makes you think. It just sets you back on your heels to see the wonders of the creation. Oh, and then the other place we want to go is, and this is kind of on the southern tip of Nevada, down there, I think what originally was called the Boulder Dam, now the Hoover Dam, a significant, location where a lot of power is generated. And I kind of think it was a project, they'll, I'm sure, tell us all about it. Maybe it was a project back in the Depression, where they put that dam in the 30s, maybe? I'm not entirely sure on the history. And just a massive, amazing undertaking to put that in on a very boisterous river system, the Colorado River that runs through there, and just a massive canyon, huge dam. Actually, it's not. There's all sorts of dams, and I know people will have their feelings on a dam and whatnot, but our way of life is contingent on a lot of these things. It's, well, maybe seeing it wild and free would be best, but a lot of times these dams are pretty useful, for preventing floods and generating the power that we use to charge up all of our smartphones and our smart cars and our smart whatevers. So, like them or not, we need a lot of these things. But I seem to recall as a kid when we went through there, and part of it is I'm just flat out interested in history. So I'm looking forward to, I'd like to get a tour inside the dam itself. I don't know that I've ever been in there. Hopefully they give us a tour. I'd like to see kind of the inner workings of it, if you will. And of course they're going to show us all the old videos, of when they made it, which is just amazing. The modern machinery has progressed quite a lot, and seeing the kind of tools that they used back in the day and what they accomplished with them is just breathtaking. And so I'm kind of looking forward to that part, and seeing what men and machine are able to do when they set their mind to it, and when you engineer something and it's still standing to this day, it'll still be standing long after I'm gone. Assuming something doesn't happen to it. As a kid, when we went and visited it, I was even surprised then. You could literally drive across the top of the dam. That's what we did. We went to visit it, and my dad drove our van, our family van that we were all packed in, right across the top of the dam. Which obviously very good visibility, but I wondered even at that time, it's like, aren't there bad people out there that maybe would try to blow this thing up or damage it or something? And I think I since have heard that they now have many more security measures in place, and that nobody is just allowed to drive over the top of the dam anymore. Apparently they have shut that avenue off to the general public, and because they constructed a huge bridge I think to the west of the dam that people can drive over, and it spans a canyon. It's way up in the air. It's just huge, and you can look down and see the dam, but no longer can you just drive over the top of it, which stands to reason. I'm not sure I don't want to have people driving over it either. There's so much evil in this world of people just wanting to harm and break things and do bad stuff. It's almost like they never had a mom to teach them some common sense or how to do good stuff. I don't know. So I'm kind of looking forward to that. Don't necessarily just like being in a car for many hours in a day and, stopping all the time for the restroom or what have you, or sitting there for hours on end, but we always try to make it a little more interesting, with taking books on tape or that kind of thing to kind of help pass the time. So, some of you listening, I don't know what kind of road trips you may have taken over the years. Would love to hear if you're willing to share. Frankly, I think I kind of prefer it to just flying somewhere. There's there's just so many things out there to see, and you don't get that from an airplane, so when you drive it takes a little bit longer, but you can appreciate more things on the way that you see, and not everything's beautiful. There's a lot of barren areas too, and we'll be doing this kind of late fall, early winter, so I'm hoping we have decent weather. But being that it's fall, there's a lot of things that have died and are dead, and the grass will be yellow and whatnot, and I just hope we have decent weather. The last time we did it this time of year, I don't think I had to dig out any tire chains or anything like that for snow, so hopefully this time we can get away with that also. Just want to have a safe trip. And also on the way, I can't believe I didn't mention this, I'm hoping to visit a special friend when I get down into Arizona en route to see my daughter. So maybe there'll be more on that when the trip actually happens. Even as I contemplate this at the moment, this is literally the 120th episode I've recorded for Gelvin Valley. I'm just astounded. 120 episodes of me blathering on, so who knows if anybody will ever even hear this episode. I don't know. Maybe I'll be just too embarrassed to even air the silly thing. Let me get that all set up. Did I lock it in? Maybe I did. Oh, yes, I did. So, just looking at the rent timer up here, because that's the only thing I have to go off of. Well, maybe I could go off of the clock. I think I have reached the end of yet another half hour. So, I think I'm gonna just call the episode here. I'm gonna park my little tractor. Thank you all so much for coming and listening and sharing, watching me farm a little bit on Gelvin Valley. Isn't it an awesome map? I know sometimes I talk about the farming, other times I'm just going on and on about other things that maybe nobody cares about. But I'm really enjoying this map, and I can't remember how much time is on. Well, we can just check real quick, right? Where is it at? No, maybe it's not there. Maybe it's over here. Let me get the statistics. I just went right by it. 152, almost 153 hours. So I've been on it for a while, and I hope we're making some progress here. I still have over $80,000 cash, so that pleases me. And thank you for coming along for the ride. And so I just want to wish you a wonderful day, and I will see you on the next one. Goodbye for now.